Welcome back to the class, everyone. Today we're going to look at one of the most important things out there when it comes to being efficient in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and that is energy. At the end of the day, Galaxy of Heroes, as much as it is a great collector game and really fun to play around, it is also a resource management game, and one of the most valuable resources in the whole thing is going to be energy. So before we even get into kind of the nitty and the gritty of talking about where you want to spend each one of your energy refreshes, which by the way, that's what this is all about. We're going to go through the 4 main different types of energy here at the top and talk about the best place that you can be using them to get the best bang for your buck. Because what we kind of want to do is avoid when you open up a new character that you're working on and you see that they need a specific gear piece and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go farm this every single place that it's available. That's what we're trying to avoid doing, because when you buy it here and you buy it here and you buy it here, and then you go onto this node and farm it with this energy, and you go into this node and farm it with this energy, and then you get this pack, you are not really doing the best for your roster to be able to build it economically. Certain places it is cheaper to get it than others, and with the game being as big as it is, with over 200 characters and having several gear tiers, we want to find the place that it is best to spend our energy on so that you're getting the best return and you're able to level up more characters faster. So before we do even get into, again, that nitty gritty, we need to address the first thing, and that is everyone in the entire game who wants to be efficient needs to be focusing the majority of their crystals on energy refreshes. I don't care how free to play you are, if you're only getting 100 crystals a day from daily, or if you're in like Kyber 1 and you're getting 1,000 or whatever it is from that in Fleet Arena, the majority of them need to be going into these up here. So what are we specifically referring to? You're not just supposed to go in here and click this as many times as you can until you run out of crystals. No. Every single one of these energies up top will let you refresh them 3 times for a very cheap amount. For the normal energy, it is 50 crystals. For the as well as for the mod and fleet energy, it's the same. Cantina is a little bit higher. I've already gone through all of mine today. They're originally at 100. You want to, if possible, if you have the income in your game to be able to go 3 times all the way through, definitely do that. That is what is going to get you the best return in the entire game. There are very, very few examples of resources being cheaper either through shipments or packs. They do exist, but they are not the norm. They are scarce. This is your default best way to do it. I will say, if you do have a really low crystal income, try to spread your refreshes out between the different types of energy. I know there's a huge temptation to just not touch mod energy at all, because you don't get characters with mod energy, or gear for that matter of fact. But it is, if you want to have a balanced roster growing up, you need to kind of split them, and that's going to vary per player, per situation, what the split should look like. But I just want to encourage people to not entirely like ditch this one. But that being said, let's go ahead and get into the actual energy types and start talking a little bit of what everything is going to look like in all practicality. So we're going to be going energy by energy piece, and we're going to start with, of course, normal energy. So what should we be spending our normal energy on? First and foremost, you need to be spending it on exclusive characters that are on energy nodes. What do I mean when I say exclusive characters that are on energy nodes? A lot of characters exist out there that can only be gotten through the nodes. Zori is a great example of that. If we go down the line, she's in like packs and stuff. I don't care about the packs at all, but she is only available in this one specific node with energy. And the hard truth is, most of the newer and the better characters are kind of like that, to the point where they're only available here. They're not available in another store. So those need to be your first focus. What you should not do is, if there is also another really good character somewhere, for example Mace, and you don't have him 7 stars, and you see, oh, he's available on a node, Calvin said I should focus my normal energy on getting characters first, so I'm going to do this. No, wrong. Don't do that, because Mace is also available in Squad Arena Store, and a lot of characters are like this, not all, but a lot of characters are like this where they're available for another currency. And if they're available for one of these other currencies, you really want to take advantage of that, whether it be Galactic War or Squad Arena or even Fleet Arena. You kind of want to be smart with your currencies, because the hard truth is the majority of characters are in energy nodes. So if you're wanting to farm up more characters at the same time, your energy is very limited, and these characters are even more limited. So focusing and pinpointing the ones you can through the store, do it. So again, that is the first place that our energy should go. It should be going to exclusive characters, or rather characters that are exclusively found on nodes. After that, we actually are going to ignore most different types of gear once you farm your 5 or 6 characters or whatever it is you're working on right now for your roster. We want to really focus on light side 7B for Kairos and Bronziums. And the reason behind this is because with recent changes in the gear economy, both with doubling the amounts for the majority of them, as well as really kind of helping the bottleneck with the MK2 raid currency that is just giving droves more stun guns and carbonis and all the stuff like that. One of the resources that still continues to be super annoying, both for beginning, mid, and end game players, is Kyrotech. So again, specifically, what is Kyrotech? What does it look like? What are we out to get? And it is going to be found, like I said, on light side 7B. And the reason why we typically, not always, but typically want to focus on the shock prod is, number one, it is on average, if we take all the characters, it is required by more characters than the computer piece is required. We go through, I mean, this list just keeps going and going and going. At the gear 12 to gear 13 level, it's required for more characters. But the other reason why I want to focus specifically on this node is because this piece right here is the best value for Bronziums in game. What are Bronziums? Bronziums are a relic piece. While I realize they're not a bottleneck for everyone out there, they typically end up becoming one later in the game, and a lot of these pieces are available on nodes, but they're just like, it's crappy salvage rates. It's like 2s and 2s and 2s and 2s, I guess your occasional 6, and then bada bing bada boom, 10 right here. Huge. You will not find really a better node than that. And this one is Kyrotech, so this ends up being the overall best bang for your buck. I guess I do want to quickly cite here that if you're short on the carbonite transistors, which is the first relic piece, I'm personally not, so it's not really relevant to me. You do want to be focusing on 1C for that, just because it offers like a stupid amount of gear pieces in regards to it. So that's also good value. That's worth getting sidetracked with. If you need it, go in that sense with what your roster needs. And then I will say, if you are going to be on dark side nodes because you are currently farming a dark side Galactic Legend and you can't get all the tickets from crystals, which realistically almost nobody can, dark side 8A for DS tickets is also completely acceptable. Number one, it is Kyrotech's, and it does have some pieces over here that are salvageable, so it's not a terrible deal. It's not as good as the Bronzium deal from the light side Kyrotech, but it's still pretty decent. I will say one other thing that you should be doing to kind of even out your Kyrotechs, which you can probably see here I am doing very poorly, is this can be bought, really all Kyrotech can be bought through a few stores, GAC and Get2 primarily being the best sources right now. Focus your battle computers there, and then try to get the majority of your shock prods through the energy node. And that is going to vary count to count. It's going to vary how many characters you're farming, because if you're farming, a ton of characters, which you should be through the energy node if you need them, then you're probably going to have to be buying both of these through the shops. But if you're wanting to go the long distance run and try to get the most bang for your buck, this should be gotten through the stores, and the shock prod should be gotten through its own node. So that is going to cover our normal energy pretty well. Fleet energy, kind of the same deal to start off with. You want to focus on your exclusive characters and ships first. I won't go into the whole spiel about the whole Mace Windu thing again, but it's the same concept. Go after the characters that can only be gotten from fleet energy before moving on to other things. And then the next piece, this is really important. It's going to be slightly complicated, so kind of pay attention here. We want to be doing 2E on fleet nodes for relic salvage. And the reason why we want to do that, and I know we're going to get a little bit of pushback because of recent developments, is when we look at it, that is actually going to be the furnace node, the golden furnace node. And not only are golden furnaces important because they're needed by this huge slew of characters down here at the gear 12 marker, but as well, it's very similar to the Cairo node on normal energy. We're going to have multiple pieces of things in here that we can relic, or that we can use for relic salvage. Not to mention the gold furnace is also relic salvage way later on in the game. But overall, it's just a really good bang for your buck. And I know what the majority of you are thinking here right now. You're thinking, Calvin, this is out of date. Do you not realize that golden furnaces are now the cheap piece to be gotten through the stores? We should really be focusing on the purple pieces. While that might be slightly true depending on your situation, that is not universally true. And I'm going to go kind of explain what I mean by that. So if we go through the raid store, you will see here that the right side pieces, of which a furnace is one of them, they're actually cheaper than the left side pieces. You know, my furnace here is 335 currency, whereas this is 425. So obviously, the first instinct for all of us is buy this here, and then on the fleet nodes, we should be buying, you know, the purple pieces or the right side pieces like these guys up here. That is not entirely true. I would encourage you, yes, buy the right side pieces like the HoloLens or this prototype here or whatever else that is at the cheaper price. Don't buy the left side pieces here. One thing I want to remind everyone on, and this is again a very long game mentality and not doing what you want to do necessarily today, but if you go down to shard shop currency, which does become a pretty hefty amount of currency by the end of the game, the left side pieces, aka these really important med packs, are half the price that a furnace or these stun cuffs or whatever else gear 12 or MK12 gold piece that is going to be on the right side. So I realize that MK2 is now a great place to get items like the furnace, but it's not universally true that they're just cheaper than everything on the right side. If you're, again, playing the long game, you're doing this for months and years or whatever it is, if you buy the med pack out of here every single time, you can kind of maintain a steady pace where it doesn't become a huge bottleneck. I say that mostly from experience. I can't remember the last time I farmed med packs on a node. It's probably been years, just because I buy them out of here every single time they drop. And again, that's not going to be true for everyone, because different bottlenecks are different for different people depending on the way they prioritize their gear and their farming throughout the years. But it's something that you can aim to do long term. I should also really buy this one again, just because the rate is really good. And then we did kind of work it in here too, that going back to the concept of fleet energy, if you absolutely need to, then yes, buy the med packs out of 5H. Not buy the med packs, but farm them out of 5H. It is not the overall best bang for your buck when considering every single gear piece, but I realize that some people out there, this is a huge bottleneck for them, and they don't just need a few, they need a ton. So, you know, in this sense, farm what you need. Not a huge fan of it again for a long game, but I get it in the short game. If you're like not joining, or you're joining JC with significantly less gear 13s because you just can't buy or farm this out of the store, just farm it out of the store. Come back to the furnace node at some point. You don't have to be that incredibly rigid with it. So that is fleet energy, probably one of the more complicated ones. Moving on to Cantina Energy. Cantina Energy is where things start to get a lot simpler. Again, I don't mean to be a broken record, but get the exclusive characters and ships first. Don't just go after random ones, by the way. Like, if you don't have any Inquisitors, don't go after Fifth Brother. Maybe, like, do the ones that you want right now that are relevant for the teams that you have, and then farm signal data as needed. Signal data, for those who are unaware, are 3 really important and kind of really annoying pieces of relic salvage, I guess we can call them, that you will need to be able to take characters up to higher relics, and they're the main place you can find all of them is going to be through the Cantina nodes. We have the green, the blue over here, and then we have the gray one over here. Kind of farm what you need. There isn't really another reliable source to get these, so there's not like this huge like math equation where like, oh, this one's good here, this one's good in that store. Like, they're barely available anywhere else. I think they're available in the Conquest store, and it's on a very limited amount. You'll never really relic up any team just out of the Conquest store, so you have to go through these 3 nodes, and again, there's really no secret formula. The only thing I will say is if you are in a really big pinch, let's say the Leviathan drops or some new character drops, and you're like, I need a ton of relic salvage now. We kind of addressed the fact earlier that the 100 crystal refreshes are always a good deal, and the second crystal refreshes are almost always a bad deal. So when you went through the 100s, you farmed up some of the energy. You don't want to go into the 200s, because now, after you've done the 100s, it's actually cheaper to buy signal data out of the store, out of like the weekly shipments, than it is to go into the 200s. And the little bit of wisdom, this isn't really wisdom, I don't know, planning, math that I want to leave you guys with, is if you absolutely have to buy one of them out of here, the way that you should do it is that you need to be farming the green piece. I forget what the actual name, it's incomplete. This has the best bang for your buck, and that is at least what the math tells us. If we go over here to this fun little spreadsheet, always have to work one of these in, and you do the math for between the drop rate, which this is taken from the Heroic Sith Raid project, or I think the Coruscant Discord, I can't remember the exact name. These are the drop rates for the 3 main signal datas, and then when you compare them to the crystal price at the store, And then we do a few formulas and we see that obviously the hundreds are a much better deal than buying them out of the store. The 200s are a much worse deal. But if we look at which one of these has the worst rate to go into the 200s, it's actually the green energy. It is much more economic, again, if you're in a pinch, to spend the hundreds on the blue, again, refreshes, and the gray. And then if you absolutely have to just buy a huge chunk of them out of the store, we want to be buying the green because it actually has the closest effective cost that the 100s have, whereas it doesn't exactly get there, but it's the closest of the three. So a little bit long-winded of an explanation, but again, for those of you who are in a pinch, that is kind of the best way to do it. But other than that, again, reviewing, go after the characters you need to get, then farm the signal data. If you absolutely have to get one of them, green has the best store value. So last but not least is going to be mod energy. And this is where things aren't really complicated at all. I know at the very beginning of the video, I said we should kind of want to be going away from the mentality of farm what you need because you might end up doing it in a poor economical sense. That being said, mod energy isn't really available in that many other places, or really not mod energy, sorry, but the salvage you get with mod energy, you can't go and buy out of it through a bunch of stores or through a bunch of events or stuff like that. It's really only there, so you just pick what you need at the time, farm it up, and get it going. The one thing I will say is most of the energy out there, or most of the energies out there, you only want to do the first 3 crystal refreshes, and I would still only encourage that with mod energy. The hundreds aren't super great value, but they are kind of decent value when you compare them to the overall cost of what is in the store. Something happened a while back with the mod battles where CG went in there and they combined and consolidated a lot of these nodes so that they're actually giving 2 pieces of salvage rather than 1. And the reason why this is super relevant is because they didn't adjust the drop rates, which means we're now getting double what we used to before. In addition to that, we're also, the drop rate isn't great, but in addition to that, we're getting micro attenuators on top of it. So now if we like start to look at some of this stuff compared to the store price and compared to doing the 100 crystal refreshes, again, if you're in a pinch to get a mod up right before GAC lock is there, the store prices really are not that good. And you almost, it is very excusable to go out after them with the 100 crystal refreshes. So that's just something we're saying, because we go on again, we go in and we compare. All right, this one is 200 crystals. If I spend 200 crystals in our energy refresh, I get like 10 attempts. Or I think for these ones it's actually a little less. 8 attempts on a node on average. One of these will drop, so I'll be up to like 16 plus micro attenuators. It ends up meeting and or beating the crystal price depending on the exact piece you're going after. I do also want to mention, I said that most of the mod salvage pieces are not available in like stores and stuff like that. There is one exception to it, and I have found it to be kind of useless, and that is the MK2 pulse modulators. You will notice these can be farmed with both shard trap currency as well as guild store currency. I would advise against that and to actually farm them with energy, and the reason why is if you go down to their specific node, you have these exclusive MK2 circuit breaker module things. These are really important for getting those mods that hit like 20 speed and they just get stuck there and getting them to 25 speed. You're gonna have to farm a ton of these anyways, so you just kind of get these as a nice extra. That's what's happened to me. I do not have 730 because I keep buying them out of these shops. I stopped buying them out of those shops a long time ago, and the reason why I have so many is because the break-even point never goes down because I always need more of these, and they end up just being essentially for freezies. So again, the overall goal of the mod energy is to farm what you need, and that is the wrong slide, we'll leave that there, but farm what you need. The hundreds are also pretty good. So that is going to make up our energy efficiency video. If you guys want other videos on efficiency, I believe one for all the stores is probably in effect, especially considering how complicated things have become, especially regarding the raid currency. But thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome.